Hello, this is Dale Matthews, and on this September 11th, I'm joined by Mike Jones. Hello, Mike.
Hello, Dale. How's it going? I see you brought some people bearing plates of green eggs and ham or something.
Yes, this is either their breakfast or their gold findings, and it's very similar to the kinds of people who come in a little family or with a couple of dredge miners, and they're out there with put kind of thing, dredge mining. We'll explain to you what we mean by that, what Senate Bill 838 is. Oh, you can hardly wait. But first, here's something that you don't see very often. We're going to start with a moment of silence. This is September 11. Can you imagine people tuning in? What the heck's going on with Mike and Dale? Okay, enough moment of silence.
Well, I mean, if you turned on your TV today, you probably saw that too, because they every year on CNN or MSNBC or Fox, you see they do the ceremony where they read all the names and stuff like that.
So that's
ding the bells.
Very short tribute to the fallen heroes and people who weren't such heroes after all, people in the plane. Okay, so by the way, I just might point out, I've done some search and rescue work in my life, and you think maybe what you see in a movie is what a plane looks like when it crashes on the ground. I'm just talking about a single engine plane. And oh, look, it looks like an airplane. No, it doesn't. I don't know if you had any experience with this, but it does not look like an airplane. The first time I saw one of these, I said, where's the airplane? It was a bright red airplane. Where's the airplane? Well, it's all that stuff out there. It looked like little bits and pieces of paper. What the heck? That's not an airplane. It's not even red. That's what happens sometimes.
Yeah.
It's just little bits and pieces of stuff that look like paper. What happened to the airplane? Surely there's an engine. Well, that's probably buried in the ground, but what's left over is just stuff. It looks like, remember coming home from kindergarten with your little treasures that your mother's going to put on the refrigerator, and then the wind comes up and they blow and they go up against the cyclone fence? Well, that's what it looks like in real life. There's nothing left, basically, just little pieces of mousse and rainbows
and squirrel.
Yes, moose and squirrel. Boris Badenoff. That's all that's left. Yeah. Okay. So,
well, yeah, you know what? I mean, listen, there's this common, people love to have conspiracy theories about 9/11. And one of them is they have a picture of the Pentagon and they go, where's the plane?
That's the one I was thinking about.
Yeah, well, like it's a missile that hit it. Hello.
Right. In some cases, there's nothing left. I have seen some of these things, small planes, admittedly, but I've seen some of these things that go, where's the plane? There isn't anything left.
Well, they were full throttling that thing directly into the side of the Pentagon. Hello.
Yeah.
Well, it's
are
gone.
The conspiracy theorists right? I don't know. But I can tell you from personal experience, at least with small planes, it doesn't look like an airplane anymore. Yeah. Unless it bellied in and slid or something. No, it's not going to look like an airplane. Okay, so we've got some news for you tonight about a variety of subjects, and then we've got a main story, which is about suction mine dredging, and not really. It's more like other kinds of mining in our area. First, I wanted to point out that the Republican Central Committee of Josephine County voted last night, after our show was over, that they are going to oppose the Grants Pass sales tax. They have taken official position at long last. So they have decided, one way or another, they have decided that they're not going to support the Grants Pass sales tax. And once again, Harry Mackin raises his head and plays a role in this one as well. You may recall the first time that I did any kind of story about Harry Mackin, fellow members of the Republican Central Committee were a little upset because they had taken what they considered to be a free and fair vote, and Harry Mackin decided he didn't like that vote. Hello, this is America, but he didn't like that vote. And so he kicked up a big fuss and caused a lot of trouble afterwards, and was part of a small group of people who threatened to close down Republican headquarters, which is across from the courthouse. This not according to me, according to the Republican Central Committee members. There were two at the time. We had two sources. Now we have three. And that's what they said. Now, in the meantime, I never said anything, well, look, your argument isn't with me. I reported what your fellow members said, and they were sitting, some of them only 3 or 4 feet from you. And this is what they said. Now we have 3 of them that have said that. Meantime, is there anything that shows that that could possibly be something that Harry Mackin does every once in a while? Mike knows from personal experience because we were at a subsequent meeting of the Republican Central Committee. Do you remember that, Mike?
Yes, I do.
Well, tell us what Harry Mackin and Roy Lindsay did.
They did a presentation. It was really sort of, if you were looking for facts, something that you could, pencil out and come up with the actual answer, it wasn't there. And it was a very thin report from these guys. Their presentation was really light on any kind of substance, and which is odd because they had just received a presentation from it was Bill Hunker and Joseph Rice that was quite extensive, and their answer to that was this report where you had to pretty much take their word for some of the numbers that they were coming up with, which were crazy. They were outlandish, like 850% the crime is up in Cave Junction. Listen, I'm sure there are parts of Cave Junction where, you've got bad actors and, there's issues there, but it's not 850%. And you can't extrapolate from that neighborhood the entire condition of the county. And that's what they were trying to do. And anyway.
Now, I don't know if there's a community theater in Cave Junction, but they might not agree with your presentation, Mike, that there are bad actors in Cave Junction.
Oh, yes. Okay.
All right. So, but I was specifically talking about the vote that took place. These fellows decided that there should be no vote. Having a vote would be illegal or improper. So having a vote would be illegal or improper. And so after the vote was taken and they lost by a huge margin, what was their reaction?
Well, they said that people were confused and they didn't understand what they were voting on.
This is a recurrent theme.
Which sounds familiar, yes.
Yes. Okay, so what happened last night? Now, I'm sure that our audience could predict this. One is Roy Lindsay didn't show up at last night's meeting of the Republican Central Committee, but Harry Mackin was there, and he got up and gave an impassioned speech about why it was absolutely essential that all residents of Grants Pass and county residents should wish them well, that they absolutely have to have another. I don't know. This is the first place I've ever been where Republicans act like tax and spend Democrats. I've never seen anything like it. Anyway, Harry Mackin said it's very important to vote for this, and he was the only one that was saying that. So they took a vote. And the vote among the Republican Central Committee was unanimous. How can it be unanimous? He just got up and made a speech. And so they said, well, is there anybody that's voting against this? Crickets in the corner. Okay, then is there anybody abstaining? And after a little pause, Harry Mackin says, well, I abstain. Really?
Wow.
Okay.
Well, maybe he's finally getting sick of being in the extreme minority. I don't know.
I know that there are some people in Republican headquarters that wouldn't mind taking a picture or two down off the wall because some of them feel, that there are Republicans on the Republican Central Committee wall that are really rhinos, Republicans in name only, because they keep voting for every kind of government intrusion, however you want to put it, government help that's out there, every kind of tax that comes along. Really, guys, I mean,
I'd be interested to know how these people think that how what it is about what they believe that they identify with the Republican Party about. I mean, how do because uh yeah, I mean it's strange. I've met a few of these type of people on Facebook, but yeah, I'm a little confused about why wouldn't you just listen? The Democratic Party believes what you believe, and you're going to be in alignment with them almost every. Why don't you just go over there?
Well, that's interesting because the electorate of Josephine County keeps electing people who are lockstep in favor of more taxes. And
Yeah.
two of these guys are supposed to be Republicans, although it's a nonpartisan race. And one of them's a Democrat who used to be a Republican. Now you've got leaders that have been elected by the Republican Party that run the Republican Central Committee, and some of them will vote for any tax you put in front of them,
Mm-hmm.
including some tax. They'll vote for it. It's a tax? Yeah, count me in. I just
Yes.
don't understand that. Where's the fiscal
Yeah.
conservatism?
Yeah. Well, listen. Uh, if you're interested in power, there's only one way to get the power, and that is to get more money. And do you use the more money to give it out to your friends? That's power. That's called power. So,
Well, it's certainly possible that if they decided to take this economic development funds that we've talked about, and the county commissioners are already putting economic development funds into other departments and stuff. And so if you took the economic development funds and you gave those to the sheriff so that we could keep everybody safe, remember our top priority are an emergency situation. The government's going to march down here. The governor is, when she's going to be armed with, left-wing people who are going to take over. And so we need to do this or all the departments are going to fall apart. Well, we were just told on Thursday, just yesterday, by the finance director, that things look like they're going to be business as usual next year. Well, wait a minute. You said that everything was going to fall apart and the levy did not pass. So how can they be liars? Anyway, I put in a letter to the editor that appeared in today's Daily Courier. Woohoo! I know. And we have talked about all these details. So I'm not going to tell you all the what it was that Mark Bartholomew said in court and how the city can revoke your vote at any time. He actually said that they don't need you to vote on this, that they can just do it today, and after the vote's all over, they can put it back on and everything. But this to me is an interesting part. I included at the very end of this, and I was really wondering whether the Courier would print this. I included the following sentences. You won't read or hear about this anywhere else. Why hasn't the Courier told you about it? See the court video for yourself at badcounty.com, where we report the news. They decided to cut that out of my letter.
Oh, they did they?
They did. So, just for fun, I'm going to repeat what it says. Thank you, Daily Courier. You won't read or hear about this anywhere else. Nobody, absolutely nobody. Okay? Why hasn't the Courier told you about it? What it was that Mark Bartholomew said? Would you like to know? Have you told your neighbors that the city lawyer says they don't need your vote, that they can get rid of a couple of these things? And as a matter of fact, they don't need your vote to put a tax on it. I didn't know that. That they could put a tax on you without a vote of the people? That's what he said. He was bragging about it. See the court video for yourself at badcounty.com. The Courier's not going to let you know where to go see the court video.
Yes.
They cut it out. It reminds me when one person that we knew got a chance to do an opinion piece. It's not a letter to the editor. It's a longer opinion piece. And Kevin Whittington, that's Kevin Whittington, the editor at the newspaper, said, well, you can write what you want in your opinion piece. Geez, I think so. But you can't criticize the commissioners. Really? In an opinion
that's
piece?
Kind of like this thing where you can't criticize people that aren't in the room or something,
Yeah, because Keith Heck says that he's forming a barricade between you and the people in the courthouse.
Mm-hmm.
A barricade. They don't want to hear negative things. They will clap, which they say they don't do. They can clap and they can criticize you even if you're not in the room, but you can't criticize them if they're not in the room. And one of the points is, well, because they're not there to defend themselves. Now, just wait a minute. They've already gotten up and they made their report and they haven't rushed out of the room, which most of them do. And then you say something. Now, how are they going to defend themselves? They've already had their time. They're going to defend themselves how? By what? Having a scowl on their face? This is also against the rules according to Simon Hare. Can't have a scowl on your face. That's freedom of expression.
Mm-hmm.
This is where we live.
Yes.
Okay. So
well,
Mike and I we went to a meeting yesterday that purported to be 3 hours long, and it was dang close to 3 hours long. And we'll be either both of us or one of us will be on Bill Meyer's show on Monday morning at 6:30, and he'd like to know what happened, and maybe some of you will too. It was supposed to be a gathering where the Forest Service and the BLM, Bureau of Land Management, were going to solicit public input about a proposed withdrawal of the ability, where they're putting a moratorium on the ability to mine in certain areas in our county.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want you mining here. And so they would like to make that illegal. Now, just be patient with me for a moment. I'm going to explain just a little bit. We've heard a number of people come to the county commissioners in the little back room also and talk about the little dredge mining, okay, like these guys. My dad was a dredge miner, amateur guy. He had a couple of dredge things, and they went putt. So that's what I know. And my mother worked for 30 years for the Forest Service. So they would traditionally.
Your dad must have had some old equipment because they apparently were running with hit and miss motors.
Well, I guess so, because that's, yeah.
Yes.
Now, he came from one point of view about this. My mother came from another point of view, and they encouraged me to do what I wanted. So, my hobby was amateur brain surgery, which I did on the local kids.
Yes,
they thought that I could do whatever I want. But let me tell you a little bit about
after you get out of prison for doing that to the local kids.
I was too young for prison. Okay, so Oregon does allow suction dredge gold mining on its rivers. It's kind of like a slightly modernized version of panning by hand for gold, which was done in the 1800s and the early 20th century. And one of the areas well known for gold mining is Southwest Oregon. In fact, Gold Beach, hello, and their surrounding communities. Gold Beach got its name from those little flecks of gold in the black sands of that area. And so there were, and there still are, miners, adults, panning for gold, although there are no large-scale commercial operations. Now they say a lot of gold mining is recreational, and it's part of the tourist industry. And it's not really usually not done by hand, but with small suction dredges. And I mean, they're small. The problem with suction dredges is they can churn up the riverbed. And so some people say this turbidity, the stirring up of the riverbed, clogs fish gills and makes it harder for them to feed and spawn.
Right. There is one other thing that does that too. It's called winter.
Yes. Okay. And there are people saying, well, there's salmon. Well, as I said at last night's meeting, at the very, very end, there were people there that were saying, well, I don't want the fish to be disturbed, and so that would disturb when I take people there to go fishing. What? Wait a minute. If you want all the salmon to live, fishermen are going to probably kill a lot more fish. And one guy said, I've got 6 fish in the back of my vehicle right now. Now, wait a minute. 6 fish?
Yeah.
The purpose of most fishermen is to kill fish. by grabbing them with a steel hook and pulling them by their mouth out of the river, and they suffocate to death. Or you lay them out there, hang them up, and they dry while they're alive. Now, okay, well, I feel
I don't
sympathy
have
for
an
all.
issue with that as
Yeah,
long
well,
as, listen, at least they're not gill netting the river like they used to do, and some Indian tribes still do.
and they are allowed to do so because it's part of their religion.
Yes. Well,
Okay,
and and think of the contrast of that when later you see this Indian elder person speaking at this meeting.
well, then there was a decision by the state of Oregon that they need to regulate the activity because it's dangerous to salmon. Okay, now we're usually talking about a couple of guys or maybe a family that's come in and they put a little tent by the river, and they may be surprised if they're from the city that the river runs all night. Gee, doesn't it ever get less noisy? No, it doesn't. Even at night, it's midnight and the river's still running. Yes, they have a tendency to do so. Anyway, so a lot of suction dredge miners from California were then coming up to Oregon because California said, we're not going to allow suction mine dredging anymore because you are killing fish. Yeah. So there were a number of, especially commercial fishing organizations that said, hey, we don't like these guys out there killing all these fish. All right, well, that's a subject for debate on its own. So the result was a passage of Senate Bill 838. Yeah, sorry, that might be boring to you. That says that mining that uses motorized equipment, even if it's battery powered, on the banks of the rivers or in the beds of the rivers of Oregon, can pose significant risk to fish and other wildlife and the water quality. And so they set up a moratorium. This will begin in January.
They have California legislation envy is what's going on there.
Well, now that thing that begins in January will last for 5 years. All right. Then there's also this thing where they're looking at having some kind of 5-year moratorium, starting with 5 years and probably ending with forever, on declaring this whole area of the Rogue River and et cetera to be a protected habitat for everything that's not human. Okay. And then they've got another deal, which has been suggested by Congress, by the U.S. Congress, that would ban all mining in several areas of Oregon. And so there's been unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your point of view, some confusion anyway about the different 5 years, and they're all about restricting mining. And last night was not about dredge mining. Mike, can you tell us a little bit about what it was about?
Well, whereas it may not have been about suction dredge miners, it is going to ultimately affect probably everybody that's mining in any way, no matter how small, in the state of Oregon and wherever else this mineral withdrawal legislation applies. So, but what you would have heard had you gone to this meeting last night is many people were saying no strip mining for nickel, because apparently yes, right. And it's like, wow, that's the first I've heard of it. Well, apparently there was some legislation passed down in California that would stop these guys from going in and doing testing for the nickel mining. In other words, they didn't allow them to use the water. I'm not sure if that took place in California or Oregon, but in any event, there is a company that is interested in coming in and drilling a bunch of test holes. And, if you've watched any of these gold shows recently, you understand why they do that, is so that they can test the samples from those core drills and tell what the mineral content is. And so they're obviously planning, if those show that there is high nickel content, that they would go in there and mine the place and probably strip mine it. Strip mining, where you're taking everything, the overburden off until you get down to the minerals, and then you just keep mining those until they're gone, and what you're left with is a big open pit, or the hill whittled down to nothing.
Well, similar to remember the two guys with the little gold breakfast or whatever. We're not talking about that. We're talking about this kind of thing. Strip mining.
Yeah, or even
it's a nickel mine.
Okay. Okay. So anyway, that's the type of thing that we're talking about here. And listen, you can come down either side on that. Listen, they have to get nickel somewhere if it is going to be polluting. And there are a lot of varying stories about whether this really does pollute to the, I mean, everybody at this meeting, oh, this is the worst thing ever. There is nothing that pollutes more than this, and
that is what they said.
That is what they said. And so, if that's true and there isn't anything barring it from getting into groundwater or whatever, then it's bad, I guess. But you really should be making your own judgment on this. And because we know very little about it at this point. Today is the first time I saw anything about this proposed nickel mining. And the other thing that they seem to be all bent out of shape about was the London nickel mine under the name of what was the name of this here? I have it on this piece of paper. Red Flat Nickel Corporation, and apparently this company is not based in this country, and so they were all bent out of shape about that too.
There was a bit of xenophobia in the air, I would say so. The Gung Hei Fa Choi, or whatever the name of it is. There were people that were there. They're the Chinese. Okay. Well, we don't want them coming here and taking all of it and doing this kind of strip mining and taking it all to some other country. Kind of like what the U.S. does in some places. But okay, I understand your point. I do understand your point. I had no idea when we arrived and there was all these people there. I thought, this is not about dredge mining by a couple of guys. This is really much bigger than this. And why were we sort of led to believe, because we're total lunkheads, maybe so, that this was about that? It was not about that.
Well, they didn't talk about this strip mining situation in the promotional materials that led up to this meeting.
No, but they didn't.
No, well, and they talked about mineral withdrawal, but the thing is that it isn't just this. This is a convenient thing for environmentalists to get all worked up about, to facilitate getting something like this, a ban that applies to everybody and everything. And this is my own personal opinion, take it with a grain of salt. But
he doesn't even need a personal opinion, because half of the people that were there said all mining should be banned forever and ever at all times, no matter what kind it is. I mean, they were disobeying the judge and implying that things were permanent.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
You'll know what I'm talking about, some of you. Yeah. So, Mike, apparently the Daily Courier was there. And they were shooting some video. You say that video is a little bit amusing. Let's see that amusing video.
Well, I'll tell you that I looked around at all the television stations, and normally there's a video archive. When they show up and shoot stuff, you usually see it on their page, or in the case of Channel 5, they put their stuff on YouTube. I didn't see it in either one of those places. KTVL did a print story with one picture from the protest that took out. Yeah, boring. And so in this particular case, the Daily Courier was the only one with published video of this out. And,
excuse me, the only one?
We haven't done it yet. We haven't put ours out yet.
Yes, we have.
Oh, we have?
Yes.
When?
A few minutes ago.
Right now?
Yeah, yes. No, a few minutes ago.
Okay, so in any event,
I was running
this
into
is it.
technical difficulties. Let's put up a slide. Technical difficulties. That kind of thing happens occasionally. And also, they're paid.
The
Well, anyway, they're paid.
Yes. Well, who's are we having a
Knockdown, tie
measuring
down fight?
contest with these
Yes, we
people? I
are.
hope not.
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Yes, but
Yes.
compared to the Daily Courier, don't insult me. Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Okay. But anyway, I think the thing that cracks me up about this video is the voiceover in it, and you'll get what I'm saying here.
Auditorium. Nearly 300 people showed up to protest at a BLM and Forest Service meeting where officials heard from the public about proposed restrictions on mining and exploration in the upper Illinois and Smith River drainages, where a large nickel mine is proposed.
Hi, we're here today to support Senators Wyden and Merkley and Congressman DeFazio in their effort to get these areas that we're concerned about from industrial nickel mining, withdrawn. We're looking for this withdrawal as a step on the road to gaining permanent protection for this incredibly important area of pure waters, salmon habitat, largest concentration of rare plants in the state. This is absolutely not the right place to mine.
What people were saying is, we all live downstream, and we are so concerned that big nickel strip mines would pollute our rivers, our wild and scenic rivers.
They've already shut down logging, fishing, grazing. Mining is another industry they want to shut down, but they don't know it. But all these guys that are big on fly fishing are going to lose that too, because they'll shut it down. All hunters, boaters, rafters, it's going to be a total closure. It's a land grab.
You can read more on this story in the September 11th print and online editions of the Daily Courier.
Well, there
I
wasn't.
just thought it was interesting. No, but it was funny that she would like emphasize every fifth word or something like that. It was
she did sound a little bit like she was right out of high school, but okay.
Yeah. No
you
worries.
could see in the background there was Channel 5's camera, and they apparently did a live at 5 thing. And
okay.
Well, most of us haven't seen it because we were in the meeting. So a lot of people showed up out there, and they were from all over the place. Now, before anyone says, well, of course, they're busing them in. Well, I didn't see any buses, but even if there were. Now, listen, if you have another point of view or a third point of view, whatever that is, why aren't you busing people in? I mean, we saw people who were there.
Oh, listen, I don't think these people all came in buses or whatever, but what I do think is that they organized their people.
That's right.
And they all, they all had almost the same thing to say. And
they're all wearing the same button.
Yeah, and it's very obvious that these people, they had it together. And if you're going to compete with these people in some way, you're going to have to mobilize like they did.
Well, no matter what your point of view is,
to that.
This is a show about politics, and we have seen miners come in wearing yellow shirts, and it says, Glease Mining or whatever it said on their district. And when they got up, the commissioners kind of listened because there were like 50 of them in the room at one time. And then they started fighting among themselves, and then they stopped wearing the shirts. They stopped coming to the meetings, and then everybody stopped listening to them. Hello? And so I'm talking with some of the people afterwards, and I know a number of these people. Some of them nobody had ever seen because they were completely from out of the area. They're from the coast or whatever. And but that they were marveling to each other that even they didn't know. They didn't even know there were so many environmentalists in the area. Really?
Yeah.
Well, so if you have a different point of view or a third point of view, get it together. Get on down there. Listen, I saw Jack Swift there. Jack Swift is very outspoken on this issue. He was there in the room. Jack Swift didn't have anything to say. He was sitting there with his wife. He had nothing to say. He didn't get up. I saw a couple other people that I know they have another point of view. And they were just like, hey, Mike and I encountered that every week at the weekly business session. Yes, it can be intimidating. Well, there are many people here who don't agree with me. So what's news about that? We do it all the time. So, grow a pair, get up there and say something. If you think you have the keys to the universe and have all knowledge, then come and tell people what you think. Don't just say, oh, it's crowded with people that don't agree with me. Brother, join the crowd. Mike?
Yeah. We have a bunch of video, so we had best get to it here.
Let's get to it here.
Okay, this is and who's this gal in the opening here? Her name is Mary
Gaudreau. Mary Gaudreau is
Mary
the
Gaudreau.
state director, assistant state director for U.S. Senator Ron Wyden.
I'd like to give you just a little bit of history that led Senator Wyden to introduce the Southwest Oregon Watershed and Salmon Protection Act this year. Copies of the bill are available on the table for anyone who would like to read the legislation, and the maps are on the wall for those of you that are interested in seeing the areas that it covers. The purpose of the legislation is to protect 4 very special areas of national forests and BLM land in Southwest Oregon by closing them to future mineral entry. This is known as the mineral withdrawal. It's also worth noting that the legislation's withdrawal provision is subject to valid existing rights. Simply put, that means if an existing claim holder has a valid right to mine under the 1872 mining law, the legislation will not affect that right.
Okay.
Now that's in direct opposition to what someone earlier that got up earlier said. So we don't know which is right. Somebody said, no, this is going to supersede the 1872 mining law. This is, and there was applause in the room to that. There were plenty of people say, we got to get rid of that old law. Okay, well, let's get rid of old laws.
I was amazed how many people were, knew about the 1872 mining law and were saying it's archaic. We have to get rid of it, which of course gets rid of, sugar pine for one, and a number of others that other miners in this county that have 1872 mining rights.
Now, she does a lot of valuable explanation in this if you're wondering what this is about, and you probably are, and we will post a slightly enhanced version of this and that it looks a little bit better. We've already posted it, as I mentioned to Mike, and you can go and see that without our blathery explanation. But one of the things I thought was kind of interesting about this is she's part of the featured presenters that are there from the BLM and the Forest Service and the this, the that, and the other thing, and she's saying this is what it's all about. Do you detect in this open public hearing to gather people's opinions, whatever your point is, that there's just the slightest bit of bias in what she's saying? You see for yourself.
The 4 areas covered by this legislation are Rough and Ready Creek at the headwaters of the Illinois, Bald Face at the headwaters of the Smith and the Chetco River, and Red Flat at the headwaters of Hunter Creek and Pistol River. Many of these are national wild and scenic rivers, and some have exceptional botanical values. They are all vitally important salmon streams and for public drinking water supplies. The values of salmon habitat and fresh, clean drinking water cannot be overstated to Oregonians. Senator Wyden has a long history of calling for the protection of special rivers in southern Oregon, because Oregonians demand that these places remain protected. It was way back in the 1990s when the public actually overwhelmingly opposed NICOR's proposal to mine at the Rough and Ready Creek, that Senator Wyden and his colleagues first asked the chief of the Forest Service to suspend funding for the NICOR EIS until the claims were subjected to validity exams. At the same time, along with 4 other members of the Oregon delegation, we asked that this unique watershed be drawn from mineral entry. So in 1999, when he asked President Clinton for help to protect 5 of Oregon's most treasured landscapes, at the time we named Steens, Cascade Siskiyou, the Little Sandy, Badlands, Rough and Ready, and South Kalmiopsis. And Senator Wyden included Rough and Ready Creek in that roster, reiterating the need to withdraw the area from mineral entry. Of those 5 areas, some are now national monuments, some are now wilderness. Rough and Ready Creek is the only one of those 5 that remains without that protection. So the Clinton administration eventually proposed to withdraw, I think I'm right on the entirety of the Rogue River Siskiyou National Forest, but the Bush administration did not implement the withdrawal. In 2009, Senator Wyden, with his colleagues Senator Merkley and Congressman DeFazio, again asked the Secretaries of Agriculture and Interior to withdraw Rough and Ready Creek after the BLM determined that a number of acres of the proposed mining claims did not contain a valuable mineral deposit. But the administration did not act, and in 2011, a new plan was submitted to the Forest Service to mine, and at this time, we understood that it included the construction of a smelter. So when Oregonians did weigh in, they overwhelmingly opposed nickel mines of Hunter Creek and Pistol River, just 7 miles from Oregon's beautiful wild coast. At that point, the Curry County Commissioners, placing the health of residents over the mines, also opposed a mine in the area. And just south of Curry County, the Smith River, which is a source of pure drinking water for thousands of local residents, and the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors in Crescent City, the local tribes, and the California state agencies also opposed mining in the Smith River headwaters. So for almost 20 years, along with Congressman DeFazio, and more recently with Senator Merkley, we have tried to protect these unique botanical and scientifically valuable areas from speculative mining operations. There are dozens of sport fishing, commercial fishing groups that are asking for even more protection. And throughout the years, Senator Wyden has always believed that these wild watersheds that provide clean drinking water and are home to healthy salmon and steelhead runs and provide high recreational values should be protected. The bottom line is these watersheds should not be subject to mining opportunities when there are higher, irreplaceable core values at stake. Given the history and the corresponding withdrawal of the wild and scenic North Fork of the Smith River, Senator Wyden, Senator Merkley, and Congressman DeFazio made the choice to introduce legislation. So in the Senate, it's S-346, was introduced in February, and Congressman DeFazio introduced the corresponding House Bill 682. The maps are on the wall for the areas to be withdrawn, and a technical correction that relates to the Chetco River we included in the bill. So the reason for this legislation is clear. Senator Wyden believes that the value of Hunter Creek and Pistol River headwaters and the Rough and Ready and Bald-Faced Creeks are critical to salmon fisheries and hundreds of other wildlife species, clean drinking water, and recreational opportunities for the citizens of Curry and Josephine counties. Since introducing this legislation, we also asked the Forest Service and the Department of Interior to withdraw the area in aid of legislation. So this process that was laid out by Jacob and is laid out in FLIPMA allows the agency to begin a segregation from mineral and geothermal leasing until the legislation passes. Excuse me. So while the legislation is being considered in Congress, we appreciate that the agencies are acting on the withdrawal, and while the delegation has asked for a withdrawal of 20 years, the agency is proposing 5 years, as Jacob explained. And we are grateful for this action, which will provide interim protection until we can pass this bill, which would then give permanent protection. So the meeting that the Forest Service and the BLM are holding here tonight, as you can see, are a step in that process. We appreciate your inputs and your comments. While we recognize that there are a variety of opinions, please sign the comment cards. Senator Wyden will also take comments on his website at wyden.senate.gov, And we will also be reading all of the comments that you all make to the Forest Service and the BLM. So many of you all have been coming to Senator Wyden's town hall meetings for almost 20 years also, and you brought this issue up at probably every one of them, many of them right here in this room. So I want to thank you for coming tonight, and thank you for making your comments known.
Now, if you have any comments, pro or con, we have posted both the surface mail address and the email address at Josephine County Politics. And you can go there, and then you can send in your comments before the 28th of this month, and you say, I totally agree, or I totally disagree, or somewhere in between. Mike?
Yep.
Now,
Yeah.
after so many people got up and spoke, but literally it was like 30-1 or more. And people had come from Crescent City and from the coast and from the north, and they wanted everybody to know what their opinion was. I had never seen, I mean, the place was packed. Honestly, I had never seen such a blowout of opinion where one side just totally dominated over another since people showed up and packed the place for the early animal killing meeting that the commissioners had. And Keith Eck was there. And so there are people who will say, well, it was a done deal. Listen, it's always a done deal, okay? But our videos are going to play long. I mean, this one meeting, and it wasn't televised. So there's no copy of anything that happened. All that anybody's going to know into the far, far future permanently until the earth is no longer here, according to the judge, will be on YouTube, will be on the internet. And so we're the only source of this. That's nice. Okay, so, well, you have a picture at KOBI. Woohoo. So anyway, the number of people that were actually there, who actually spoke, who actually was in the room but didn't speak, just don't tell me you've got opinions if you're not even brave enough to stand up and say what they are. Don't bother telling me about that anymore. Some of you opinion leaders in the area, brother. Anyway, Mike has more video. Go ahead, Mike.
Yes. Now there was I didn't even know that we had, tribal elders living in the area, but before public comment, which was, a guy standing there with a microphone, and you walk up and you get a minute and a half in front of him. They had this gal as a featured speaker.
Grandma
for
Aggie.
A few minutes. Yes. Okay.
Grandma Aggie is a famous local tribe member, and you'll see that she's got some tattoos on her face and this kind of stuff. She is the definition of a tribal elder.
Okay. All right. Here she is.
My name is Agnes Pilgrim, and I live here in Grants Pass. I'm very concerned about this mining. I'm a voice for the voiceless. That means the swimmers in the water. That means the air. That means all rivers and streams are going to be affected by this pollution. I thank all of you and our state representatives. We're all in this leaky canoe together. But I pray that all of us here can put a stop to what is happening. You too are a voice for the salmon, the trout, and all that drink from the banks. We have that job to be that voice. I feel that power in this room, don't you? That we can accomplish this. We can accomplish this with the Creator's help. Because I don't want this to happen. Rough and Ready has got some of the purest water that we have in this country. Do you want to see it contaminated? It is really up to us to guard it until we can get some legislation to protect it. We can do that. Everybody here is a water baby. You were born in water in the amnio sac. Your beginning life was in water, and water is all of our first medicine. And for God's sakes, let's take care of it for the next 7 generations to come. It is our job. It is not us adults that own the world in the first place. It's the children. And we as adults are not doing a very good job of taking care of it for them. So let's do a better job, and let's be a voice and stand together and to stop this mining. Can we do it? Yes, we can do it. So do your prayers, because I feel that our state reps can help us. In a few days, I'm going up to the governor and I'm going to talk to her about it. And I know that she'd be concerned about this river down through here. So we don't want them polluted. We want to take care of them for all things that drink from the banks and eat the grasses and all of that. So let's keep it going. Let's continue our voice and our prayers. Thank you ever so much.
She's a favorite with the environmental community.
Yeah, I imagine that she is. But let's only protect it for 7 generations. That's hardly permanently.
No, it's not permanently. No, Mike's right about that. Well,
Yes.
you know,
Well, wait a minute. You know what? Listen, I understand people like this can get up there and, we're supposed to have total reverence for them because, they're tribal elders. And you know what? There's been this idea that somehow that the Indians or the indigenous people or the
original inhabitants.
Yes, were more connected to the earth and they're more spiritual than anybody else. Now, while she's saying that we should be watching out for the fish and watching out for the deer and all that kind of stuff, there's a lot of these Native Americans that put out gill nets across the river because the treaties give them the right to do it, and they hoard these things by the thousands.
It's their culture. It's their culture to rake in as many fish as they can.
Okay, why isn't it somebody else's culture to piddle around, do some gold mining? Just because we've grown up with this idea that these people, we should give total reverence to these people and everything they say. I don't buy into that. Now, I'm sure she's a nice person, and I'm not in favor of dumping arsenic into the river or something like that. That's not what this is about. I think that there can be some coexistence here, but not with a lot of these people. They don't want, if you want to mine, if you want to fish, the fishermen, that guy in the Courier's video is right. The fishermen, they're going to be the ones next get this because they're going to be cut off from fishing in these areas. And, they're just going to have to eat it just like the miners did. But they didn't have anything good to say in support of the miners. So no one will be there for them either.
Well, it's true that I heard nobody at all ever booed by this audience except for those who said anything crosswise. And then there were people that just hate them. Well, I got up at the very end. I wasn't going to say anything. Why would I say anything? I mean, these people should say everything that they have to say and let's put it out. But I got up and I said, look, I wouldn't be in favor of some commercial fishing vessel from, I don't know, Japan or, Slobovia or something, coming down one of our rivers and taking all of our fish with them and take it home so they can eat it. I wouldn't be in favor of that. It's not xenophobe, but I mean, yeah, I don't think so. But, I also wouldn't be in favor of someone coming in with a strip mine and taking every bit of nickel out and leaving behind a big hole like we've seen. And strip mine is a strip mine. But can we possibly make room for, Beavis and, you know what I mean, the two Goldflake brothers? They're Jewish guys that come from New York, the Goldflake brothers. Can we possibly make it possible for them to do a little put kind of thing, even with an electric motor, just for enjoyment?
Yeah, and right. I have no problem with that. But I'm not ready to say that you can't have a strip mine somewhere, because let's understand something. All of the metal, all of it that we have came from something, and it has been a tremendous benefit to mankind. I'm not saying that you destroy the earth, because the earth is not destroyed at this moment. And it hasn't been yet. Now, has there been some pollution? Absolutely, because some people, practice without restraint. But the bottom line is that you have to allow somewhere for them to take nickel out of the ground. You have to allow them to take iron ore. You have to allow them to take a number of different minerals. And if you're going to close off everywhere, listen, it's going to cost so much to have a new car, because ultimately at some point they're going to have to put you on a waiting list until enough cars get turned in and recycled to make the metal so that you can have your car. Now, if that's what you want, then this is the world you're making.
Well,
here.
I have to admit that if you're going to mine this stuff in some other country, which we prefer, of course. See, that's what we do as Americans. We
Why
other country, but it would leave.
Why do we prefer that?
Because we don't want it next to our rivers and next to our water supply and next to our rich botanical inheritance or whatever. Okay,
yes.
I'm
everybody's got a
fan
rich
of
botanical inheritance.
Well, everybody does, as a matter of fact, the tropical rainforest and all that. Okay, but that's going to leave a larger carbon footprint. Look, I recently went in and I had my shoes resoled. Okay, and the guy asked me, would you like some kind of carbon soles on there? It would keep them even smelling better. Well, no, because of the large carbon footprint I would leave. You can't laugh about such things. Stop laughing. Shut up. Okay, so
well, Dale, all you have to do is pay a few more. All you have to do is pay a few more dollars for your carbon soles there. As a carbon offset, as it were.
Yes.
And then you can feel good about your nice smelling feet.
Yes.
And you can.
Well, didn't the Beatles make a song called that, Carbon Soul? There was a whole album, wasn't there? Well, anyway,
I don't know.
Rubber Soul. So can we make room for these guys was my question. Really? Can we not? Do we really need to? I don't like this analogy. Throw out the baby with the bathwater. Is absolutely essential to shut down everything so that these guys look. Oh, I like my hobby, which is killing fish, and I think that's superior to getting gold with the really. Why do you think that killing this living animal, which you're supposed to have so much respect for, is better than these guys doing this? Come on, can we make room for small family timber guys and the small?
Wait just a minute. There's nothing wrong with taking salmon out of the river.
I agree. What I'm trying to do is compare the two and say, if you're going to be morally superior, that you're killing your brother fish, right? Your brother, right? Come on.
Here's the problem. Really? When you start playing that game, you're one increment until you get to the end of it anyway. So listen, let's just have the battle right here, right now, and decide what we're going to do. Let's not do this, chip away, because we all know where that leads. Ultimately, that leads to what they're talking about. They're openly saying here. That they want permanent bans.
Permanent bans and chipaways. It still sounds like Native American stuff. But go ahead and play the next video, please.
Hi, my name is Jade, and I live in Williams, Oregon. I love the Smith very much, and it's my favorite river. I love swimming in it, and it's one of my favorite places to be. I also want to say that just because people want to mine doesn't mean that we can sacrifice all of the life around the Smith and in the Smith River. I really love it, and I want all the life around it and in it to be alive, healthy, and safe. I really love everything that is alive, and I want them to stay alive. Thank you.
Now, I got up to speak after her mother got up to speak. Now listen, we've got a little girl on crutches. And then her mother gets up to speak near the end. So we got families of people speaking. the husband and the wife, or the girlfriend and the boyfriend. We got all these people who are coming to speak on their favorite subject. Well, great. Do you think that we could get one person, two people, maybe even three people to say any other point of view, or at least to ask a question? I asked a question at this meeting that they had about the motor voter bill. Is it okay to ask a question? Is it okay to say, hey, can we make room for anybody else and their hobby and their way of increasing the tourism that we have in this area? Can we make room for but? No, say some people, okay, you've got your point of view. But where are the community leaders who are supposed to be, I'm rough and tough, and they can't stand up against a little girl with crutches? Apparently not. And her mother? Two people from one family. I mean, really? Can you get one person from the community? Come on, you guys. What the? This is the Ann Basker Auditorium. We've taken over the Ann Basker Auditorium. I'm not saying that the conservatives and the nutcases and the crazy conspiracy, I don't mean those people. I mean, can you at least say your point of view? And if you're there, I'm not talking about people who, well, I'm too busy to go. Okay, but if you're already sitting there, do you think that you might get up enough energy to stand up and say something? No. I just like to see both sides presented. That's all. Is that unreasonable?
Yes. Well, then you came to the wrong place last night, because it was pretty lopsided. Here's Gunter Ambron.
Yeah, Gunter Ambron, and it's great to be here. My thing is, home rule. That the local people get a right to put in have the majority of the decision-making power, in an area. So I always still shudder a little bit because we have so many professional, well-trained people in BLM and Forest Service and all of our legislators, but we really don't get the face time to be able to participate and help to make the decisions that affect the local people the most, and especially in an area where we only have 1%, of the waters that are so pure, and so I speak against the corporate powers that overrule our local powers and community rights that we have as a community, and our individual rights as well. So these are things that really need to evolve now, and we need to stand up for our values, rather than having corporations dictate to us and spoil us. We're Americans are probably more spoiled than any individual of any other country. 25% of our resources, only 5% of us, we use 25% of the resources in the world. So anyway, I have more information I'll share with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was my camera in the foreground, getting the other point, getting a slightly closer view of it. Just in case you wondered, well, there was more than one camera. Yes, we went to this meeting with 2 cameras, which was like 100% of the video shot in the room. Okay, because I wanted you to be able to see this kind of thing, Mike.
Yep. And now, what you've all been waiting for.
Oh,
the one guy who came up and says, actually, there was a few people, 2 that I saw, and then guys. Dale got up at the end.
Yeah, I got up at the end. At least I had a question to ask about things. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. So this is Jim Frick. Now, listen, we've been critical of Jim Frick on this program. I'm not critical of what he said. I think that number one, he had the guts to come up and face this crowd and do it. And that was something, because let me tell you what, this crowd was like fanatically, fervently on the environmentalist side. And to come up and to say anything, I have to give some props to him for that. So
Mike is quite
Jim
right.
Frick.
That was fanatic. It was.
Yeah.
My name is Jim Frick. I own the Holiday Motel in Kirby, Oregon since 1976. I've been a real estate broker in the Illinois Valley for 38 years, and I'm against this withdrawal. And I'll tell you why I'm against it. Because if it's not mined or grown, we don't use it in America today. Where are we getting our new wealth from? If it's not mined or grown, we don't use it in America today. Think about every product that you use. I don't care if you're a cannabis grower, you got to grow it. I don't care if you're a beef grower, you gotta grow it. I don't care if you're a vegetarian, you gotta grow it. Try and feed your cat non-meat products, they'll die. And I gotta tell you that it's the same thing. A lot of you came in Toyota Priuses tonight. That has a nickel cad battery in it. Where do you think that nickel came from? Probably came from Canada. Do you think that they're going through this process up there of worrying about, their clean water and pollution and all this? I have lived on the Illinois River since 1976. It is as pristine today as it was the day that I bought my hotel. Rough and Ready Creek is pristine, and there's nothing that you're going to do by doing this withdrawal that's going to change what we have. Walt Friedman spent over $1 million and he lost on his nickel operation. I don't think that you're going to see big nickel and big corporate nickel come in here, but I will tell you that you're living over the most minerally rich country in the United States of America, in my opinion. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So in other words, what you're doing here with this withdrawal, if it ultimately goes through, which, it's quite likely possible, depends on what happens politically in the next few years. Yeah, well, the withdrawal will go through, but perhaps the permanent withdrawal will not take place.
That's a possibility.
This depends on what's happening nationally in politics here in the next few years. So, but to his point, you're shutting off exploration and exploitation of any of the minerals in this, any new claims to minerals in this county, and apparently it's a very, very rich mineral county, and I refuse to believe that minerals cannot be extracted responsibly. Some people, and listen, you ask any of these people at this meeting there last night, with one or two exceptions, and they'll tell you nothing. You cannot mine anything. You don't even dig a fire pit in your backyard. I mean, that's the way these people are. So there has to be some sort of happy medium in there somewhere. There has to be a way to responsibly do it. I refuse to believe that anytime you mine anything that you destroy and pollute everywhere. Because listen, we went up to the Sugar Pine mine. Did we see a polluted creek coming through there? No,
there's just a tiny little hole in the side of the
hole
mountain
in the
that
ground.
expanded out once it got in.
Yeah, so I refuse to believe that, somewhere in there, listen, there's a balance. You have to be responsible. You can't just willy-nilly dump stuff on the soil or in the water. That's a bad practice, and that certainly should be regulated. But to shut it off entirely, I think that is irresponsible.
Well,
that's my right.
There were people at this meeting who were treating these guys in the same way that they treat the little mom and pop operation that goes out and cuts down this tree or that tree, and they leave most of them, and they take down some of them, like Orville Kemp does, and his wife was there, or his paramour or whatever. Anyway, and she spoke, and maybe there's an opportunity, perhaps not for commercial enterprises to come and denude the forests. Okay, they used to do that. Maybe not for someone that's going to come and strip mine right next to beautiful rivers or even ugly rivers and do that. Maybe not. But can you make any room for anybody? And I said that, and I got to tell you that at the end, there were people who turned their back on me and were all huffy, and they wouldn't even look at me. But there were other people who I saw had gotten up, and they came over and they tapped me on the back, and they said, you're probably right. We should probably not, do a total ban on everything. There's going to be plenty of people who are going to feel that way. There are others that, like I said, that maybe we make a little room for Orville Kemp and his operation. Maybe we can make a little room for the Gold Dust Twins here. Maybe we can do these kinds of things. Do we really have to say no to absolutely everything? Isn't that, for the environmentalists in our audience, isn't that exactly what you say that you have experienced with the other side all this time, that they're always saying no, no, no to everything you say? Can we find any place, any common ground where we can work together?
And I agree with that, but it's funny that you would say that the other side says that people who want to cut some trees or do a little mining always say no, no, no. Who's winning this battle here? You know,
Currently,
who's the one saying no, no, no? If you're an environmentalist, you're the one saying no, no, no.
that's correct.
Why don't you try to find a little bit more common ground with these people you oppose, because backlash will come at some point sooner or later. As Dale is always saying, the pendulum is going to swing back, and you're not going to like what happens.
You're
when
going to
that
run into
happens.
some of the same people that you snubbed on the way up. You're going to see them on the way down.
Right. Yeah, exactly.